morning. Welcome to the community. We're so glad you're here today. Did you get a Tootsie Pop when you came in today? Because if you haven't put it in your mouth, you can put it in your mouth anytime. You can do it right now. It'd be great. But we are doing a series for the next 2 weeks called The Square Root of Life. And really what it's all about is the Tootsie Pops. Well, kind of. The Tootsie Pop, Tootsie Roll Pop, is a unique piece of candy. The reason I love them is because there's something on the inside. I know it's just a Tootsie Roll, and I don't even really like Tootsie Rolls, but I crunch through the candy, and I get to the Tootsie Roll center, and suddenly I love Tootsie Roll Pops. For years I've passed them out. When I was in youth ministry, we used to pass them out to the kids all the time, and those sort of things. But Tootsie Roll Pops, it's what's in the center that matters. And here's the deal. Our series is called The Square Root of Life. A square root of a number is just what makes up the number. The square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. It's what actually makes up the number. In life, we focus on the exterior. We focus on what we do, the things that happen to us, the things that we're involved in. That's how we focus. But what we don't realize oftentimes is that it's what's on the inside. It's what is the center of our lives that take care of all this on the outside. And so that's what we're going to look at for the next 2 weeks. We're going to look at what is the center of life. What is the square root of life? When I was 14, I moved to Carmen. It's a small town in northwest Oklahoma. And my grandparents lived there. My grandpa was a custom cutter, so he would go in the summers and cut wheat all the way up to Canada. And he had some farmland, and so they hired me to drive the tractor and do their farming. Now, I was 14, had never done it before, but I was going to learn how to do it, so they sent me to tractor driving school. I had to go to Cherokee, which was the center of that area, the county seat or whatever, and I had to take a course. I think it was a week long, and they taught us all about how to drive the tractor and those sort of things. And on the last day, we were going to have a driving test. And so that day, it was raining, just pouring down, so they kind of cut the test down a little bit. But we're out there waiting to have our turn on the tractor and to drive it. I'm about fifth in line, and people are going up there, and the first one drives the tractor, and as the second one goes up there, he shows him some things about the tractor, and he has him come around in front of the tractor wheel and shows him something. And the instructor's back there going, what in the world is he doing? The next one did the same thing, and finally, after about the third one, he said, listen, if anybody else walks in front of that wheel, I'm going to flunk them. He said, you can get hurt walking in front of the wheel. Now, that's a silly thing, because I guess you can, but for some reason, I guess I'm a sick person, I have thought about that for a long time. You know how things stick in your mind? And I thought, you know what? If they'd have just illustrated it, if they'd have just shown us, I mean, nobody wants to get run over by a tractor, and a big wheel on a tractor can do a pretty bad job on you. But just saying it really didn't make much difference. What if they'd have gotten a video? Of course, this was probably time before videos. They could have gotten a video of somebody, who was standing in front of a tractor and gets run over, and it would be bloody and gory, and we'd say, oh, I never want to do that again. Or they could have just gotten a dummy, and they could have set it up in front of the tractor wheel, and they said, what happens if the tractor engages? And they'd run over it and say, you don't want this to happen to you. It would have made an impression that I would have never forgotten. So this morning, as we're talking about what is the center of life, what is it the square root of life, we need to think about what's inside us and why we do the things that we do. And hopefully I'm going to try to illustrate it in a way that's going to make sense, that you can relate to. Because this can absolutely change your life. Our church exists to make your life better, to make you better at life. And I promise you that what I'm going to share with you today can absolutely make your life better. But it's a little weird, and it's a little different. So let's look at it. There are three things we're going to look at today. Look at point number one. Jesus came to give us a brand new life. Jesus, you know who Jesus is. He was God's Son. He came to earth in human form, fully God, fully man, and lived a life. Now, we've talked about him for years in the church and other places, and we've said, well, Jesus came, and why did he come? Well, he came to tell you what to do. He came to kind of show you the rules. This is how you do it. And we really haven't done a very good job of explaining this, because there's a point where Jesus actually said, this is why I came. And most people don't have any idea why Jesus came. They think it's about religion, they think it's about the rules, they think it's about wearing certain clothes and going to church on Sunday, and it has nothing to do with any of those things. And others have taken it and said, well, Jesus came to give you everything you want. Name it and claim it. You just name it, Jesus will give it to you. And all those who follow him will just have everything they want, and everybody will be attracted to them. The only problem with that is it doesn't happen. It has never happened. It's a lie. So let's look at this. Why did Jesus come? He says the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus is talking about those who are enemies, Satan, and also people in your life. There are people around you who want to steal from you. There are people around you who probably wouldn't mind killing you. There are people around you who would love to destroy your life so they can get more for themselves. That's why we have locks on our doors, why we have locks on our cars, why we have padlocks and those sort of things, to try to keep those people away from us. Jesus said the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. But my purpose, ding, 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 my purpose, and for some reason we've missed this. We haven't really taken it in. But look what he said. My purpose is to give you a rich and satisfying life. Well, wait a minute. I mean, I know people who go to church and they don't live much of a rich and satisfying life. They're always solemn. They're always getting on to people for what they do and stuff like that. But a rich and satisfying life, what kind of rich is he talking about there? Is he talking about the name it, claim it thing? You just tell me what you want, I'll get it for you. I'll give you anything you need. No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about rich like chocolate cake. Anybody in here like chocolate cake? Chocolate cake that is rich, that is gooey, is delicious. Don't you just love it? You eat it and you go, oh, that was so good. Jesus said, I want to give you a life that is so good, that you can enjoy. But I'm not going to take away the problems. You live in a broken world. And in a broken world, you're going to face all sorts of things. You're going to face tragedies. You're going to face difficulties. They're not going to go away. But I will give you a life that's going to see you through and that you're going to look forward to, because he says a satisfying life. What is satisfying? It's what you want. You know what I really want in life? I want a reason to live. I want a reason to exist each day. I want a reason to get up tomorrow. I want a reason to go to bed at night and say, man, that was a good day. I want a reason for living. Jesus said, I have a purpose, and my purpose is to give you a rich and satisfying life, and I will give you just that. But you got to follow me. And that's the problem. We're not big on following Jesus. Instead, we're big on following our own way. You know, most of us live to get more, to have more, to have a better, easier life. That's what our lives are about. And I'm going to tell you the truth. If you live that way, and I have lived that way for a long time, if you live that way, you will never have a rich and satisfying life. You may have some things, but you're never going to be satisfied. You may accomplish some things, but you're never going to be satisfied. There's always the next thing I got to get to, and the next thing I get to, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. But you will not have a rich and satisfying life unless you follow Jesus. The thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. My purpose is to give you a rich and satisfying life. Let's go to the next point. This life that he offers us is different. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? They came to Jesus and said, okay, you claim to be God's son, so you should know this. What is the most important thing that we should know? And he gives it to them. And it's exactly what they wanted. Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And they're going, okay, that's all right. We've got to love God. And then Jesus just blew the doors off. Because he said this next thing, and nobody had gotten this next thing. Nobody understood it. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. What does equally mean? Up there with it. The same. It isn't just about loving God. There's something else. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. This was just life-changing. Jesus said something that was totally out of bounds. Nobody had really said this. They said, oh, you must serve and honor God. You must keep the rules. You must look down on others who don't keep the rules. And you must walk along in your religious clothing and everything will be great. But Jesus said that's not it at all. He said, you must love God supremely. And you show that you love God supremely when you love one another. Wow. Love one another. Now see, here's the rub today. Here's what we're going to deal with. How does that work out? How do we love one another? Put others equally with us? Or maybe even put them first with us? But how does that work out? Because I'm trying to make money, get more money, have more things, have more freedom. How does that work out if I'm doing things for other people? Give me a couple of personal examples. Because I think God has worked on my life so much because I got so far to go. But Claudia and I have been trying to sell our house for about a year now. About a year ago, we put it on the market, and we got a deal. And we signed a contract with some people. We signed a contract on a house that we're going to buy, and we're going forward with it. And things just kept going wrong, but we're still getting closer to the date. And then about a week out, we hear it's not going to close. They're just kind of backing out of the deal. Should have been relief, but we were just really mad. We want to sell our house. We felt like God was leading us to go someplace else. We're going to go to this other place and all this sort of thing. And it was just really bad. But they had put some earnest money up. You know what earnest money is. It means, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it. If I don't do it, we'll give you the earnest money. And so it wasn't a lot, like $1,500, but we had spent more than $1,500 on getting our house ready to sell and what they wanted and all this sort of stuff. So we put it in there. And we got a call from the title company, the abstract company. And they said, listen, the earnest money's still here. You need to contact them so that we can release it to you. And Carla's talking with them and all that, and she said, well, I kind of feel like we deserve this. And the people at the abstract company said, well, you do. You absolutely deserve it. And so then we talked about it. We talked about it with our friends. We talked about it with others. And everybody's saying, you need to get that earnest money. They need to pay for what they've done. They backed out. They weren't supposed to. You need to get the earnest money. And Carla and I talked about it. And we felt like God was saying something different. Now that's weird. God's saying something different. God, wait a minute. These people need to pay. They put us through all this. They didn't go through with it. They need to pay. But God said, no, you need to let it go. And so we did. Carla made me, that's why we did it. But anyway, we did. And God said, I want you to love me and prove that you love me by loving others as yourself. Even those who hurt us, even those who did this to us, we're going to love them. Yeah. Let me give you another example. About 8 years ago, I left my church. I'd been there for 13 years, and I'd had enough. And I walked out. Incredible freedom. The next morning I wake up, I have walked away. And then I realized I had no job. I had absolutely no way to make a living. And we would have bills coming due. And I panicked. What would I do? We began looking for jobs. And while we did that, I took a job laying laying laminate flooring for somebody. I used to do that for people, and I would do it cheaper than anybody else would. So I took a job doing that. These people called me out. I went out and looked at it. I looked at how much I was going to have to do and what they would need, and I gave them the price for it. It would be $1,100 to do it. And that was like, $800 or $900 cheaper than anybody else to do it. So the next day or two, they had everything. I went out and I began to lay the floor. All that week I worked on the floor, just about had it finished. And then on Friday, we got a call in Fort Smith, Arkansas. A place that I had applied to had called me and said they wanted me to come for a job interview. I had to go. So on Friday afternoon, we packed up, we went there. Carla had a job offer that she was talking to over there, and I had this one, and I went through the whole process. We got back on Monday, and then I went back out and finished the work. And I gave him a bill. And he said, well, I'm not going to be too quick about paying you. He said, you left in the middle of this deal. He said, and you could have finished it Friday, but you left somewhere, so I'm just not going to pay you too quickly. Hacked me off. I mean, just made me mad. But I am a preacher. So I said, okay. And I walked out. Went home, and I was really mad about it. Carla and I talked about it. And we just let some time go by. About a week later, I sent a registered letter to them with the bill involved in it. And then that sent him off. He didn't like that. He called back, and he started complaining about everything. The floor looked good, everything looked great, but he didn't like anything now. And I had done a horrible job and all this sort of thing. And I thought, man, I could take him to small claims court. I ought to. If he's going to treat me that way, that's what I ought to do. Yeah. And God said no. God said, let it go. Oh, wait a minute, God. Wait just a minute. This is $1,100. I have no money. I can't pay my bills. You want me to let this go? Yeah. So after wrestling with God for a day or two, he finally sent me a check for $300. He said, that's what I think it's worth. So I took the check. I said, thanks, but no thanks. You're not satisfied, so the job is free. And I sent it back. It was very painful because we didn't have money for anything. God went ahead and took care of us. We got the jobs, and he saw us through that time. But he said, I want you to love me and show me that you love me by loving other people. Even people who do that to me. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I don't say that to be proud or boastful, because you have no idea the internal struggle I had to do that. But God took me through it. And this is one of the first times I've talked about it since then. It's just not a big deal anymore. $1,100, I mean, if it was blowing by on the floor, you wouldn't even go bend over and pick it up, would you? I'd be scrambling, you know what I mean? But God made it okay. Because he said, I've got a different way for you to live. Let's go to point number 3. This life that Jesus offers, this rich and satisfying life. So now I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you're my disciples. We've taken this verse. The church has taken this verse. We've said, see, here's how we show the world who Jesus is. And we get them in here by we'll love each other, and we'll get everybody in here, because that's our goal. We've got to get everybody in here. And so that's what I did for years. But that's not really what this verse says. This verse says, I'm giving you a new commandment, love each other, just as I have loved you. you should love each other. She said, I showed it to you. I showed you what it means. I put myself behind you. I served you. I gave my life for you. I want you to act that way. I want you to act that way with the people around you. I want you to care more about the people around you than what you have, than what it gets you from your status. Now let's be honest with each other. We want status. Oh, I'm a minister. I don't want status. That is so phony. All my life I was serving God, but I was doing things, and if we can do this and this and this and this, and we reach these people, then people will notice, and I'll get this job over here, and I'll do this and this and this, and eventually I'll get to the biggest church, and everyone will love me, and it will be so wonderful. But that's not what Jesus said. He said, love the way I've loved. Give yourself the way I've given myself. Serve other people. Man. You mean I'm not supposed to worry about where I end up? I mean, I'm not supposed to worry about all the things that I have? No. He said, I called you to follow me. And here's the deal. If you will follow me, people will see you and they'll notice a difference. If you don't follow me, they're not going to pay any attention. And they're not going to want to come or be a part of anything. But if you love people the way I love you, it will attract people. About 8 to 10 years ago, God got my attention. I hadn't followed him. Oh, I was a minister. I did all those sort of things. But I hadn't really followed him. I hadn't really taken this seriously to love him and show that I loved him by loving other people. But I had some events happen, and when I came out of those events, I was different. Suddenly, it wasn't about what I could achieve anymore. It wasn't about what I thought anymore. It was about whether I loved people or not. One of my favorite things every week is Sunday morning. Y'all come in, and I'm just excited to see you. Not because you're at church, and not because I get to talk to you, but I'm just excited that you're here. And if you can't see that, I mean, that's really what I'm doing. I'm just so thrilled you're here. I want to hear about what's going on in your life, and I don't know where that came from. Because it sure didn't come from me. I spent most of my life trying to achieve for me. But God said, love me and show it by loving other people the way I did, the way I do. If you're here today, there's not a single one of you that God doesn't love. Incredibly love. The one that he didn't create and create incredible things inside of you that he wants you to use in life. He has given you a purpose. He has given you passion. And probably a lot of you haven't found it. And that passion will help you love the people around you. And I can't even describe to you the difference in my life. Hopefully, once in a while, you can see a little glimmer of it. But to care for other people and to do for other people is what I was created for. And you do. Jesus came to give us a rich and satisfying life. That life that he came to give us never will happen as long as we go our own way. And Jesus' way is this: get involved in the lives around you. Pull for other people. Do things to help other people. Now, he wasn't just talking about all the people that are trying to take you and those sort of things. I don't think that was the main thing. He said, you're surrounded by people. Invest in their lives. Help them get what God has for them. And I've noticed something over the last 5 or 6 years. I love that. I mean, I achieved things. We built churches, we built more churches, bigger numbers and more things, and it wasn't really the same as seeing somebody become what God created them to be. Seeing someone get it. This church exists to help every one of you understand who Jesus is and to get online with him so that he can show you your passion and get you involved in life in the way that he did. I even hate calling us a church. Not because there's anything wrong with the church, but because we've so missed what the church is supposed to be. We are called to invest in the lives of those around us. This week I want you to do that. Let's pray. Father, thank you for today, and I thank you for your word. And Lord, I pray that I've been able to speak in a way that people can connect to. Because if I haven't, I've just messed it up, Lord. And Lord, I pray that you'll take this and put it in people's hearts and help them today, this moment, to begin to make a plan to follow you. In Jesus' name, amen. This week, as you go through life, look around you. Look at the people who are involved with you and say, I need to invest in them. How can I get involved with them? How can I be a part of what they do? And I promise you, it will lead you to a rich and satisfying life. Have a great week. I'm glad you came.